A boxing betting expert.
I know, David.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He really gets into the nitty-gritty of this whole thing.
Mario, good morning.
Good morning.
Very excited to talk to you. I only known you a few weeks. You came onto the scene, certainly for me, with a brilliant Usyk place in history piece. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Some hot takes in there, and I want to get into that during the conversation. But firstly, can you? So your website, I've gone through most of your articles. I think they're all brilliant on Box Punch. Now, I think I read somewhere that you write all your articles originally in Italian, and then you've gone through a process of translating them to English.
Yes, that's true. First of all, thank you for your invitation. And yes, I launched Box Punch in June 2024, and I did it because I worked for three different Italian boxing websites in the past. Okay. But right now, all of them disappeared. They are not online anymore because of decision made by their owners. So I just say to myself, okay, let's do it by my own. And so I created my personal website. And so I don't need to depend on someone else. And my last experience, my previous boxing website, was a pretty painful experience because we had a lot of success. Our Facebook page still has more than 400,000 followers. And that's right. A huge number for Italy, because in Italy, the boxing is not so popular. And when my daughter was born, I just said to the owner of the website, I need a break because I have to take care of my daughter. And after some months, the site was not online anymore. And that was painful because I made a lot of researches. I watched thousands of fights in order to write my articles, and everything disappeared from the web. So luckily, I was able to recover, to rescue a lot of my articles of the past. And so I say, okay, let's do it by my own. And during that previous experience, I noticed looking to the stats, that some of our articles were popular also outside Italy. We had readers from South America, from Mexico, and so on. And so I said, okay, let's make the articles available also in English and in Spanish. So I write my articles in Italian, and then I translate them in English and in Spanish using artificial intelligence. So because my English is decent, I hope it's understandable, but it's definitely not good enough to write directly in English. So that's the way I'm doing it.
It's very interesting because I knew you were Italian. I read your articles, and the English is brilliant. So I was very interested to know what that process was. And then, do you have a method for checking the quality of the English once the AI has translated it?
The previous version of the artificial intelligence I'm using, I had to change something. Yeah. Reading the articles, I had to change something. But right now, I'm not changing anything because it's a very good translation. I read in English, I read books, I listen to some podcasts, so I can understand if the translation is fine or not, and usually it's already fine. I don't need to change it.
It's brilliant, and you have to be careful, because when you're translating something that is quite a niche, nuanced topic like analyzing boxing, there could be things that it would get wrong. So for my company, we've used translation before, and in football, we had a problem whereby if you're talking about the woodwork, when a football player hits the woodwork, they hit the frame, the post. It's called hitting the woodwork, and the translation services would often think that was talking about carpentry. So there were and there were loads of things where you had to. That's just one example. So
probably in the past it would have been more difficult, but right now with artificial intelligence, with the new versions of ChatGPT and other services, they are very good in translation. So they can understand what are you talking about, what's the context, and so on.
Yeah.
so far it's fine. I mean,
Yeah, it's brilliant. Okay, and going forward, is that the same process? You're going to write in Italian and then translate?
yeah.
Great. So
I will keep doing that, and it's not that time consuming, because you just need to put your article in ChatGPT, and it gives you immediately the translation.
Okay, great. So how did you get into the sport? What's your first memory of boxing?
Okay, I don't know if it counts as boxing memory, since it's just a movie, but the fighter who got me into the sport is Rocky Balboa, because I was 6 years old when I watched the Rocky movies for the first time, and I immediately fell in love with boxing. And I was saying to my parents, when I'll grow up, I will become an astronaut and a boxer.
Nice.
And they were pretty happy about the astronaut part, not very happy about the boxer part. But still, they bought me a pair of boxing gloves for my 7th birthday and a punching ball. And but the first real fight that I watched live on TV was Mike Tyson against Julius Francis.
Oh, wow.
It was in 2000. I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember staying awake, waiting for the fight. My father was waiting for the fight. My father is not a boxing guy. He doesn't like boxing so much, but you know, Mike Tyson was Mike Tyson. So, and I still remember the Italian commentator of the fight saying that Julius Francis was squeezing a little ball every night, and on the ball it was written the word "believe." And when I heard that, I was just a child, but I remember thinking, who knows, maybe he will win this fight. I was kind of rooting for Francis, but of course he didn't win the fight. So that was the first fight. And then I kind of forgot about boxing for some years. But just when I was 17, I don't remember how it happened, but I started downloading some fights of the past. Muhammad Ali against Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali against George Foreman. I was using a software named Emule. It was very popular at the time for downloading videos and music, and so I started looking for some forums to discuss about boxing on the internet, and I found some, and I started discussing with other boxing fans, and so. That's how it started.
Yeah, great. That's interesting. The Julius Francis, Mike Tyson, that is in the intro to this video. There's a photo of me with Mike Tyson a week before that fight. He was in London sightseeing, and I met him, got a photo with him, and I gave him my prediction about that fight. I said he was going to win in 3 rounds, and Tyson said it was a 1-round fight, and he won in the 2nd round. And I like to think that me and Mike, between us, we got it right. Brilliant. So have you ever boxed yourself?
I never fought. I trained. I played volleyball for most of my life. Since I was 13 until I was 27, I was playing volleyball. But when I was 18, I interrupted my volleyball career to try boxing. And I trained for 1 year in a boxing gym in Marcianise, who is a little town in the south of Italy, because I'm from Caserta. Caserta is not so far from Naples. Okay, Naples is the most famous city in that part of Italy. Yep. And in Marcianise, there is a boxing gym named Excelsior, and it's the boxing gym where Clemente Russo came from. Okay. So he's a silver medalist in Olympic Games. And I trained there for 1 year, but it was... I wanted to become a boxer, but my mother was crying almost every day in that year. So it was a family crisis. My father was very nervous. They cut my money. They didn't give me any money. I had to go by myself. They didn't want to give me the car. So it was a very tough year. So at the end of the year, I started university. And when I started to study at university, I'm graduated in aerospace engineering. So it was pretty tough to manage the time to do both. So I understood that I couldn't do boxing seriously. And since I couldn't do it seriously, let's go back to volleyball and let's make my family more quieter. So that's what happened. But when I finished my university studying, and when I started to work pretty far from home, then I started again to train just for fun. So now, actually, I still had the idea of making one fight, okay, at least one fight. And I was almost ready to make that fight. My trainer said, okay, next month we will probably arrange a fight, but then pandemic came, and so I had to stop. So it was my destiny.
So you were sparring, you were doing everything.
Sometimes, yeah. I did.
What weight division were you?
I right now I'm around 90 kilos, so let's say a cruiserweight. But in the past, when I was training, I was pretty lighter.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you think that helps you having that experience? So it's like a year's worth of training, pretty solid. Would you think that helps you when you're assessing fights now?
A little. Let's say I consider that I don't want to say that it's not important to be into the gym, to train, to talk with the boxer, with the trainers. That's important because it gives you something more. It's a plus, okay? But it's not the most important thing. So when people say you can't understand boxing because you didn't box, that's bullshit, in my opinion, because usually they say that because they can't answer to your argument, and so they try to diminish you as a person. But it's helpful because when you are into the gym, when you see, also even if you just watch to the sparring sessions and if you talk with trainers and fighters, it's helped you to better understand some dynamics of the sport.
Agree, great. And so who would you say has been your favorite boxer to watch? I know you've done research back in time through history, but who's been your favorite boxer to watch since that Tyson-Francis fight?
A pretty tough question. Maybe Gennady Golovkin. I was rooting for Gennady Golovkin. I really liked Golovkin, yes. Yeah. Probably he was the fighter that I liked the most since I'm following boxing. Yeah,
that right era. And do you have you been to many fights live?
I've been to some, but mostly domestic level, because in Italy we don't have so many great boxing events. So I've watched live some European title. I remember maybe the most important fight I watched live was the European title of Luca Rigoldi, and against Setul, Frenchman, and that's it. I couldn't. I didn't have the opportunity to travel to watch boxing outside Italy. I did it just once, but it was for a very minor boxing event. It was in London, in at York Hall. I went there to watch my not really a friend, but we knew each other. Angelo Bevilacqua. He's a guy who had just, I think, 5 or 6 fights as a pro. And she moved to London and tried to start a career there. So it was his first fight in England. And we went there. It was just a 4-round fight against a local journeyman. And we went there to support him. It was my only experience abroad to watch boxing.
What did you make of the York Hall?
Sorry.
How did you find the atmosphere in the York Hall? It's a very.
It was very, 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 very exciting. It was I really like the British atmosphere during boxing events. I prefer. I've never been into the United States, so I can't see it by myself. But watching on TV boxing events in England, in United Kingdom, and in United States, I prefer the atmosphere in United Kingdom. It seems to me more savage.
Were you savage? Were you ground level, floor level, or were you on that balcony?
I was ringside in that occasion because we got the free tickets from the promoters because we were covering the fight for our website.
Brilliant. So, and do you have a favorite weight division now? And if so, why?
I right now maybe super welterweight is very interesting because we have Terence Crawford, Ortiz, and Madrimov, Bohachuk. We have a lot of exciting fighters to watch. So maybe right now it's one of the best divisions to watch. It changed over time. You have some divisions that are full of champions in a particular era of boxing, and then after some years, nobody left. And so look at the middleweight division right now. It's very poor in terms of talents. We have Shiraz, we have Alim Kanouli, and almost nothing left. There is Adames, but he lost against Teixeira, so He's a good fighter, but not a great champion. And I was pretty shocked when Vincenzo Gualtieri, the German, won the world title and even fought for the unification fight. It couldn't happen some years ago.
So who is there? Are there any sort of Italian fighters on the world? You've had some, I remember there was a heavyweight a few years ago that was Francesco someone or other, heavyweight that was there's been a few Italian names that have been high profile.
Okay, right, in heavyweight, you mean?
Yeah.
Right now, the best Italian heavyweight is Guido Vianello.
Okay.
Sure. Right now, he's the best. He's the best one. He fought an almost even fight against Ajagba, and then he won against Makhmudov. It was a very huge upset recently.
Wow.
And right now he's the best. But we also have Diego Lenzi, and I actually trained with Diego Lenzi for some months. He was at the Olympics, and now he turned professional. And now he will be professional and amateur at the same time because he wants to participate to the next Olympics. But he also started his professional career, and he's very promising. And even if he's not Italian, but I would like to mention a Cuban heavyweight who is training in Italy. His name is Angelo Morejon, and I watched him live 2 times. His trainer is my personal friend.
Right.
And I really think that Morejon has the potential to become a great fighter because
brilliant.
He has a lot of amateur experience in Cuba. He fought against La Cruz and other Cuban very, very good fighters. Wow. And now I think he has 7 fights as a professional, almost all won by knockout. He has huge power, good technique. He's improving every day.
I'll keep an eye out for that one then. Great. And okay, so what about if you could change any rule in boxing, be it a change in existing rule or add a rule, what would that be?
Listen, I would change something about the scoring system. I don't like the scoring system like now. First of all, I would like to come back to the even rounds because right now it happens in England sometimes, pretty much, but in United States it never happened. And I think it's not good because sometimes at the end of a round, when you are judging a fight, where you are doing your scorecard, at the end of a round, you are just like, wow, and now who won this round? It's difficult, but you must choose someone. And that's a problem because if you are in good faith, and if it happens 2 times in a fight, you will give 1 round to one fighter and another round to another fighter. But if you are not in good faith, it's very easy to give all the close rounds to the same fighter. But even rounds exist. So if no one did better than the other, just give 10-10. So that's the first thing. And another thing that I don't like is the fact that a dominated round and a just one round are scored the same way. 10-9. It's very rare to score a 10-8 round. You just have to almost kill your opponent. And that's unfair because people don't understand. Because if you have a fight where, let's say, the fighter number 1 wins 5 rounds, but he dominates those 5 rounds. And then he lost the other 7 rounds by a little margin. The people who came to watch the fight will say that the fighter number 1 won the fight because they remember the dominated rounds, but actually he lost with the current scoring system. And it happened, I remember one particular fight, Marco Huck against Alexander Povetkin. And it was like that because I scored the fight and I had Povetkin winning the fight by a small margin, by 2 points, because he just won those 7 rounds. But in the other 5 rounds, Marco Huck was dominant. He was hitting heavily. He was hurting Povetkin. And so a lot of people after the fight said it's a robbery. It wasn't a robbery. It's just the scoring system that allow some kind of results.
But so I think, and that also what the example you've given explains why punch stats are often irrelevant because one fighter can land for sake of example, 500 punches in 3 rounds and not for a punch for 9 rounds. So the punch stats is irrelevant. They give you an idea and they're nice talking points, but in scoring the sport, they're irrelevant. And also, so it's interesting. I love that about the scoring system. I love the fact that you can nick rounds and that a fighter can just do enough in 7 rounds, get dominated in 5, and still win the fight. I think that's part of the appeal of boxing for me. That you can. And so how would you change that?
I would just make it more simpler to give a 10-8 round. Okay, I would just say to the judges, if a fighter win convincingly the round, give him a 10-8 round. And then if there is a knockdown, you can took another point away. Yeah. So that could be a possibility. 10-9 if the round is just won, and 10-8 if the round is won convincing. That could be a possibility.
The only thing with that is certain fighters their very skill set is to just win rounds, is to steal rounds and just be the better man. And you would then penalize that style of fighting potentially. But
yes. Probably there's no perfect system.
No, exactly. So which fight have you enjoyed most over 2024, and what are you looking forward to most in 2025?
I think the best fight of the year was Ford against Kolmatov. I agree with the Ring magazine choice because it was very, very exciting until the end. Yeah. But the fight I enjoyed most watching was Alexander Usyk against Tyson Fury 1. It was very, very emotional. That was absolutely enjoyable. Yeah. But the best one, Ford against Kolmatov. Yeah. And in 2025, the fight I would like to see is Gervonta Davis against Shakur Stevenson. Yeah. It's absolutely the fight I would love to see, because that's a so unpredictable fight, and two amazing champions facing each other to determine the best into the division, into the lightweight division. Two opposite styles, a great offensive fighter against the defensive fighter. It would be amazing. I really hope they could make it.
Who would you lean towards if they made that?
I would pick Stevenson to win, because I think that I wrote an article. I don't remember exactly the title, but it was something like, "Is Gervonta Davis risking the Wilder syndrome?" Okay. And of course, I explained it in the first line of the article that I was not comparing Wilder and Davis from the boxing point of view. I know that Davis is way better boxer than Wilder. But the thing that I was comparing is the fact that just like Wilder, Gervonta Davis had a lot of fights in which he was the heavy favorite. Yeah. So he was almost never in trouble in his entire career. Yeah. And that could be a problem, because when you are never in trouble, it's difficult to improve. When you have to dig deep, then you understand your flaws, you understand what you need to do, what you need to work to become better. And he is always winning with easy. So when he will face a fighter like Stevenson, who is so able defensively, who is impossible to crush down just with the first 2 or 3 hard punches, I think he could be in trouble. And I like Stevenson to win that fight. But it's very difficult to predict.
I think that's brilliant, Mario. And if they do make that fight, I think that little 30-second clip there might be... you might come back to that in a few months' time. I think that's spot on. So now, do you have any sort of like hot takes or cold takes where you've just got a prediction right against the odds or badly wrong, or have you any other sort of betting experience where any anecdotes in sort of that area?
Listen, I have okay. First, about predictions, I have two, let's say, long-term predictions that I'm pretty proud of. Okay. And the first one is I made it when Alexander Usyk was still a cruiserweight. Okay. And I already said one day this guy will beat Tyson Fury. I was already sure, and I repeated it when after Fury versus Wilder 2. When everybody was crazy about Tyson Fury, he's unbeatable, he's the best of all times. And I was already saying Alexander Usyk is beating this guy, because I was sure that the style of Usyk could be a nightmare for Tyson Fury, because a lot of people said Fury is too big, the size difference will matter and so on. But I was actually thinking the opposite. I was thinking that the Tyson Fury style is perfect against heavy and steady heavyweights, because he has that ability to predict your moves. He understands what you are doing a second before, and so here with his long arms and good footwork, he's able to avoid those punches. But against a smaller fighter, a fast fighter who's unpredictable like Usyk, that doesn't work. So I was already sure Usyk was winning that fight. So that's one. And another one I'm pretty proud is I made it after Chantel Cameron against Viviane Obernauf. So Chantel Cameron was still young, unexperienced. But after watching that fight, I said, Chantel Cameron will give Katie Taylor her first defeat.
Oh, wow.
And it turned out like that. So I was right about that, because I saw something in that fight. I saw her aggressive style. I saw how she worked the body. And I also thought maybe when they will meet, probably Katie Taylor will be already declining a little bit, and Chantel Cameron will be in her prime. And so it turned out to be like that. But there is also a long time prediction I'm not proud of, where I was very wrong. And I was sure that, not sure, but I was saying that Savannah Marshall will beat Clarissa Shields. That was a very wrong prediction.
Okay.
I said that, I was sure about that, but it turned out to be wrong, because I thought, okay, Savannah Marshall has that crazy right hand power. She's very explosive. And Clarissa Shields, on the other hand, doesn't have the same power. She usually builds her knockouts by working a lot. She's more a demolition boxer. So I thought she must come close to make her work. And so Savannah Marshall will just nail her with a powerful right hand. But Clarissa Shields dominated that fight. I think I gave to Savannah just the last 2 rounds. She clearly lost.
So do you ever so with these sort of views, like from far out, do you ever sort of exploit that with like betting opportunities?
Yeah, I was a betting guy in the past. I'm not betting anymore on boxing, and it's quite a long story. I will try to make it shorter, but in the past, I was just betting for fun, okay? Just small amount of money sometimes. Then I asked to myself, can I gain something betting? Because I have good boxing knowledge, so maybe I can invent some system in order to gain some money. And I invented a strategy, a betting strategy. And the 2 main factors of the strategy were my boxing knowledge, of course, and my statistics knowledge. Because as an aerospace engineer, I had an exam in university about probability and statistics.
Great.
So I sent an email to my former professor of probability and statistics, and I asked for a meeting. And I asked him for some advices, and he was very helpful, because he said he suggested me to make an Excel file to simulate 10,000 years of betting. So I had this sheet on Excel with 10,000 lines, and every line was 1 year. Of course, I didn't expect to live so long, but it was just to receive some accurate results. And every cell of the sheet was 1 bet.
Right.
So I used some function on Excel to get random numbers. So it could be 0, so wrong bet, or 1, right bet. And in that way, I simulated what could happen. Of course, I had to give some probability to Excel to determine when the probability to get 1 and the probability to get 0.
Yeah.
But I had a track record, because in the past I played a game online without any prize, any money prize, just predicting fights.
Yeah.
So I went to read my past prediction, and I saw that I was wrong 1 time out of 5.
Okay.
those predictions. So I said, okay, but I couldn't choose the fights I was predicting at the time. So I thought, okay, now that I can choose my betting, I will probably be a little bit better. So I made this hypothesis that I will be wrong 1 time out of 6.
Okay.
And so in that way, giving those information to Excel, I got the full simulation. Then I created an equation to determine in how many years out of 10,000 I would fail. I would completely fail. I would make my budget to 0.
Can I ask a question? So will you input, if you're getting it right 1 time, you're getting it wrong, if you're right 5 times out of 6, what are you also inputting what the odds would be in the matchup?
Yeah, of course. I was betting only on fights I felt sure about the result.
Yeah.
But I put this rule: I can't place a bet on odd less than 1.20. We use decimal odds in Italy, so it's you place 100, you win 120. Okay, that was the minimum. Okay. And I also made the hypothesis that the average odd would be 1.33. That was the average odds.
Yeah.
And of course, the probability to fail, to destroy my budget, was depending on how much I was betting for every bet.
Yeah.
So I tried many different simulations, and at the end I decided to place for every bet the 7th part of my budget.
Okay.
So I had my total budget on the site. I don't want to mention the site, and every time I was betting, I was putting the 7th part of my budget.
So then, 1/7 of your 1/7.
Yeah, 1/7. Yes. Yeah. So if I have 700 on my account, I'm betting 100.
And as that bank is changing, it's still 1/7 as it moves.
Yes. As my budget is growing, I'm betting more. So every time is the 7th part. And if I got wrong, if I make a mistake, then I put the same amount of money, and so I will need 3 bets to recover. With an average odds of 1.33, I need 3 bets to come back to the previous budget.
Great.
So that was more or less the system. And
can I ask another question? So what about and you're betting on just the money line, so who win or lose?
Only who wins. Only who wins.
And
no
draw
only who wins. So the draw, I take back the money.
Refund. Perfect.
So that was more or less the system, and I was calculating that I would double my budget every year. So the program was to double the budget every year. So I started with a budget of 1,500 euro.
Yeah.
And the plan was to arrive to 3,000 after 1 year, to 6,000 after 2 years, and so on. And it was working, because after 2 years, it started in August 2016, everything. And in December 2018, I had more than 8,000 euro on my budget. But then something went wrong, because at that time I made 2 consecutive mistakes. I don't remember one of the 2, but one was for sure Carl Frampton against Josh Warrington.
Yeah.
I was sure Frampton was winning that fight. I'm still sure that the prime Frampton wins that fight, but it was not the prime Frampton. So, and I made also another mistakes in the same evening or in the same night. So I lost some money. And after those 2 consecutive mistakes, the company I was betting on start cutting my betting. I mean, I couldn't bet. I couldn't place the money I wanted to put on betting. So I was trying to put, let's say, 1,000 euro.
Yeah.
It was written, no, the maximum amount we can accept for this betting is just 100 euro. Yeah. So I couldn't go on with my system. So I get nervous.
So could you not go to a different company?
It could be a possibility, but you have to consider that in Italy, you can't play on every boxing site in the world. There are only some betting sites that are allowed to work in Italy.
Yeah. Okay.
And the one I was using was the only one that was giving a lot of boxing fights to choose. All the other sites, the selection was. And so that was the problem. And also I read on internet, then when you are on a kind of blacklist on a website, they share those lists.
Okay.
So probably starting somewhere else, it would become the same. So I got nervous. I lost other money because I was trying to recover, to rescue the money I was lost. And so at some point I said, okay, stop. Now I'm just taking the money. I gained something. I earned, I think, around 3,000 euro at the end of the experience. But after that, now I have some kind of refusal or some kind of aversion against betting. Because it was really, really time consuming, because I had to study a lot of fights. I wasn't even interested in just to bet the right way. So right now I'm not very interested. Maybe in the future I will bet again.
That's brilliant. I love that. Like, I love the methodology. I love the discipline. I love all that. And did you, while you were doing it, did it elevate your enjoyment of the fights or make it a bit more stressful?
Both. Yeah. On one hand, I was able to discover some fighters I didn't know. So surely my boxing knowledge increased because of that. But at the same time, yes, it was stressful because every week I had to study many fights and so.
And do you have a database still of all the fights you bet on?
Yeah. I think so. I think it should be somewhere here on my laptop. I'm not opening it by a lot of time, but it's still somewhere.
It would be a brilliant article to write that up and explain, because not many people have done a systematic approach like that. And it'd be brilliant to write it up and see how far you were flying, and the down. It'd be very interesting to go in detail into that. So that's brilliant. So since then you do not have fun bets? Is that it?
No, not betting anymore.
Okay, so love that story. Thanks for sharing that. What about, do you have a name that comes to mind when you think of the most overrated boxer, either active or historically?
It's difficult to answer because for every boxer you have some fans that are overrating him and some other that are underrating him. So, but I think that right now Joseph Parker is a little bit overrated.
Okay.
I don't want to disrespect the guy because he's very lovely. I mean, I like Parker. He has so good personality. He's fighting everyone, everywhere. But I think that his two last victories were not that impressive, because Deontay Wilder was completely washed, in my opinion. Okay, he was never a great heavyweight, but I think his version that faced Joseph Parker was absolutely washed. And against Zhang, Parker was losing the fight after 7 rounds. He was down 2 times, and then just Zhang ran out of gas. So he was not doing anything in the last 4 rounds. And even then, Parker was not doing so much more. He was just touching sometimes more. So maybe right now, Joseph Parker is a little bit overrated. And I think that against Daniel Dubois, he will lose the fight.
Right.
Because Joseph Parker is very good when he can set up the pace. Yeah. But when he is against an aggressive fighter who is putting a lot of pressure on him, he's usually in trouble. He was in trouble against Carlos Takam in the first part of his career. He was in huge trouble against Joe Joyce. And I think that against this version of Dubois, who now is fighting very aggressively, he will be in huge trouble. I think Dubois is going to win by knockout.
That's brilliant. Yeah, love that analysis. Okay, so in terms of best heavyweights of all time, let's talk about your Usyk piece. So headline, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're saying Usyk and Lennox are now kind of vying for number 6 in the all-time list.
Yes, those lists are very, very subjective. So it all, as I explained it in my article, it all depends on your criteria. You can just say, I want to make a ranking about how good those fighters were in their prime, and then you can put whoever you want on the first place. You can also say Mike Tyson was the best heavyweight of all time, but if your criteria is that it's who was the best in his prime, that's very subjective. So in my list, my personal ranking, now I have Muhammad Ali as the best heavyweight of all time, but I think that Joe Louis is very close. So you can choose Louis or Ali. It's between them.
Yeah.
And I usually don't rank fighters before they are retiring. So Alexander Usyk is still not on my official list, but in that article, I was just reflecting about what's his place if he retires now, okay? And I put him around position number 6. So on my list, I have Muhammad Ali in the first place, then Joe Louis, then Rocky Marciano, George Foreman, Larry Holmes, and then it's between Lennox Lewis and Alexander Usyk.
Amazing.
And I know that some people say that Usyk fought just a little number of fights, and that's true. But at the same time, you have to consider that boxing changed a lot over the years, and so right now some numbers of the past are impossible. So if you put too much importance on the numbers of the fights, of course, modern fighters can't get to the first places of any ranking. So that's I don't like that approach.
So can you talk a little bit about your top two, so Ali and Joe Louis? What you like about those two?
You know, Joe Louis had so impressive kingdom. He had the biggest number of world title defenses. It was just one world title, so that's also very important. And he was down sometimes in his career, but every time he got up and was winning the fight, he was beating every fighter. And he had also that impressive knockout win against Jersey Joe Walcott. He probably didn't win the first fight. I never found the full video of the fight, but a lot of people who were watching the fight in the past wrote that it was a robbery. And in the rematch, even if Louis was fading, it was not in his prime, he was able to win by knockout. That was very impressive because Walcott was an amazing fighter. And so Joe Louis may be the best heavyweight of all time, but I favor Ali just a little bit because of the epic factor of his career, because he had so many unbelievable wins. The fight against George Foreman, the trilogy against Joe Frazier, and so that epic factor just give him something more on my ranking. But it's very, very subjective.
Brilliant. Okay, and apart from Julius Francis, who is the best British boxer you've ever seen?
Okay, since I'm following boxing, I would say Josh Taylor is. Yeah, because Lennox Lewis already retired when I was starting to follow boxing. So, of course, the best British fighter of all time, I would say Lennox Lewis. But since I'm following boxing, Josh Taylor, I think is one of the best. In his prime, he was very, very, very good. I was rooting for him in every fight. I really liked his style, his demolishing style. And Ricky Hatton is also close. So
okay. Brilliant. What can you think of the best upset you've seen since you've been following boxing, or just the most surprising result, or failing that the best knockout?
Biggest upset maybe Andy Ruiz against Anthony Joshua. I was watching it live on TV and I was so surprised. It was very, very unbelievable. And the best knockout, there are several, but okay, this year, a knockout that I really like, and the best knockout of the year, of 2024, of course, is Naoya Inoue against Luis Neri. That was very impressive because of the combination, because he hit him with the right uppercut and straight right hand, and it's very, very, very difficult to put power in those second punch. But Neri just flew out of the ropes. So that guy is unreal. So
Right.
that was a knockout that made me very,
Brilliant.
very impressed.
And so on the other side, then, what is the worst bit of sportsmanship you can remember seeing?
The worst sportsmanship, maybe a fight that was really disgusting, in my opinion, was Abner Mares against Joseph Agbeko one.
Oh, okay.
Because Abner Mares was hitting low every time, a lot of times. And the referee, Russell Mora, was not giving him even warnings. And
Right.
one of the two knockdowns of the fight was actually a low blow. So that was very, 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 very,
Right.
very bad to watch, to see.
Okay. So I've obviously we've seen the content you put on your website, and you talked about the sort of analytical approach when you're picking results. But is there anything you do now still that you think is unique to you in terms of assessing matchups, or even the way you score a fight when it's unfolding live?
No, I don't think I do something particularly special in assessing fight. In scoring fights, in my mind, there is a kind of balance. And when every time a fighter hit the other, this balance change a little bit. So I try to mentally have this kind of balance in my mind. But I don't think that's particularly unique. So no.
But a lot of people don't even do that. A lot of people just watch the rounds, and then when it's finished, just say, right, he won. And what about the assessing the matchups before the fight starts? Is there anything you do differently?
No, I don't think I have some special recipe to assess matchups. I try to take in my mind the styles of the two fights, so which style will prevail against the other. But at the same time, you have to consider the level of the fighter, because even if you are favorite because of your style, if you are not good enough, you are not going to win the fight. So you have to consider both.
Do you find that if the fight is 3 months away, you'll make an opinion and you'll stick with that, or do you find you sometimes change your mind?
Usually I stick with that, but sometimes it happens that you just didn't think about some particular factor, and then you change your mind over time. It happened to me before an Italian derby. It was Daniele Scardina against Giovanni De Carolis. Okay. And at first I thought Scardina was going to win. He was the betting favorite or favorite also. But a few days before the fights, I just rewatched some fights of the two, and I said, no, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Giovanni is winning this, and De Carolis won the fight by knockout.
And so you had your Usyk Fury opinion from 5 years ago. Was there anything in the build up to the first fight or the second fight that had you doubting yourself?
No. In both situations, before the first fight, I was so sure Usyk was winning because it was my opinion from many years. So I couldn't. But I have to admit that during the fight, I was scared. And the first fight. And I have to admit that during the 6th round of the first fight, for a moment, I thought maybe I don't know anything about boxing, because it was going so differently than my expectation that I was really, really shocked. But even if I have to say that some people are exaggerating that for watching it live, it was scary, but rewatching the fight, it was not that bad. I mean, that bad. Fury was not really dominating the fight. He had those 3 round and a half where he was very good. He was winning. But I have to say, in the first 3 rounds, even if nothing much happened, I liked Usyk more than the Fury. So the fight was still pretty close after 7 rounds. I think there was 1 or maximum 3 points margin, or not more than that. But of course, watching live was...
Oh yeah. Well, the betting odds as well after 6 rounds, around that phase when Fury was dominating, Fury hit him with an uppercut. Everyone got carried away. He took a good shot. Great. You know, he looked like he'd been punched for 20 seconds. Then he recovered and he moved on. Yeah. But like the betting odds, I think Fury was massive favorite at that 20 to 1 on, like one, crazy short price at that point. Yeah. And in the rematch, in the build up, nothing in Tyson Fury that concerns you?
No. No, I was since I have to say I was rooting for Usyk because I really like Usyk as a boxer and as a person, and I was happy when I understood that Tyson Fury was coming heavier
Yeah,
because I think it was a wrong move
same.
for
Yeah,
Fury. Because the main factor of the first fight, in my opinion, was the stamina
yeah,
difference. Because that when Usyk just start growing in condition, you can't match that stamina. And a heavier Tyson Fury maybe could have some higher opportunity in the first few rounds, but after round number 6, he couldn't match that.
yeah. Brilliant. And okay, so aside from your own website, so are there any books you'd recommend, podcasts, or you talked about Rocky? So yeah, best boxing books or podcasts?
But boxing book, my favorite boxing book is I don't think there is in English because it's called La Botta in Testa. It means a blow on your head, and it
Right.
is from Tiberio Mitri, one of the best Italian middleweights of all time.
Okay.
He fought against Jake LaMotta. He
Oh,
fought
right.
against he scored the first round knockout against Randy Turpin.
Yeah.
And it's his autobiography, and
okay.
that's my favorite book, but
Right.
it doesn't exist in English.
Okay.
And in English, I think I recently I read the Ernest Shavers autobiography, Welcome to the Big Time, and I really enjoyed that.
Brilliant,
That was
Ernie Shavers. Fantastic.
yeah, because Shavers fought against so many
Yeah.
great guys, and so reading his memories was a very good experience.
Superb. Brilliant. Okay. So the last one is what you've already done a quick pick for the 22nd of February. Well, not a quick pick. You kind of went in pretty hard on Dubois. Is of that card on the 22nd of Feb, is that the standout fight where you feel confident about Dubois to beat Parker?
Yeah.
Is there anything else there?
Yeah. I am very confident about Dubois, and about the other fights. Better Biev against Bivol is very difficult to predict because the first fight was so close. When I watched it live, I had Bivol up by 2 points.
Yeah.
But when I rewatched the fight, I had it even,
you?
114, 114. So it was very, very close. And it's difficult to say that there is some factor that favor Better Beer, some other that favor Bivol. Usually, I think in the rematches, usually the technical fighter, the fighter who has better technique, has some advantage.
Yeah.
So I would say that Bivol has slightly the better technique. Better Beer is very underrated from a technical point of view because he does a lot of things very, very well.
Yeah.
But Bivol is superb from a technical point of view. So that's favor Bivol. But on the other hand, now Beterbiev knows that he can't be hurt by Bivol, so he will probably be even more aggressive. So it's very difficult. I have the feeling that this time Bivol is just winning by a little margin, but it will be very tough. So maybe I'm going with Bivol. In this fight, I think that Shiraz is going to destroy Adames. I would be very, very, very surprised if it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And another very difficult fight is Ortiz against Madrimov. That's a very, very difficult fight to predict because Ortiz doesn't have a very good defense. So in the first few rounds, he will be in danger because Madrimov is a good counter puncher. He has power. And so I would not be surprised if Ortiz will go down in the first few rounds. But if he recovers and if he keep pressuring, then Madrimov could be in trouble late because Madrimov, a little bit like Parker, likes to set up the pace. He doesn't have a really big work rate. So against the pressure fighters who doesn't give you brief, it could be in trouble late. So maybe I'm going with Ortiz, but again, it's very, very, very close.
Brilliant.
And of course, Stevenson is beating Schofield. I don't have any doubt about that. And another very interesting is Zhang against Caballel.
First one.
And because Caballero style is dangerous against Zhang, because Zhang has so heavy hands, and against a pressure fighter, he can be very, very deadly dangerous. But on the other hand, Caballero is not stupid. He's a pretty smart fighter. I watched his fight against Chisora, and he was able to box Chisora. So he's not so one-dimensional as many people believe. So I think he will be pretty cautious in the first few rounds, and in the next rounds, he will apply higher and higher pressure. And since Zhang is 40 years old, I think that if Caballero survives the first few rounds, I think he will win the fight. So I'm going with Caballero. And of course, Buatsi is favorite against Smith. At least on paper, it should be Buatsi the winner. But
brilliant. So, Mario, that's great. I asked you for one hot pick, and you did the whole card. So that's amazing. And so your website, it's Box Punch. How you spelling that? We'll make sure people go.
Boxpunch.com, and it's BOXE, and then punch, of course, PU.
And your Twitter, your X.
If you write just boxpunch.com, you will go to the Italian version of the website, but there are flags, Italian, British, and Spanish flags on the screen, so you can switch the language. And my Twitter or X account is Mario Salomone 89.
Great.
So,
and
I usually put the links of my articles there in English. So.
Well, I hope anyone who's watching this will go and read some of your articles, because, as I say, I've absolutely loved them. In the last few weeks, I've read about 6 of them, and all brilliant. And they're insightful, and they're opinionated in a really calm, and you caveat everything by not just saying this is fact. You give it always your opinion, and it's well thought out. So I was thrilled to find your website. And I'm very much enjoying following you on X. So
that's very kind from you. Thank you, David.
All right, Mario. Well, great. Look, hopefully I'll talk to you again, and let's wrap it up now. But thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your invitation. It was a pleasure.
All right,
Goodbye.
Mario. Talk soon.
Goodbye.